So welcome along to third of these Blues Zooms with a great gallery tonight. The man at the bottom there is a man who was in charge of Blues for 5 months, Harry Redknapp, king of the jungle, everything else. And he's had experience of the current regime, so we'll talk to Harry. I know he's got to go off to a barbecue, so we'll move on. Just above Harry, we've got Tim Andrews, who used to be the chief executive of the Blues women's team. Next to Tim is Mark Garratt, who's a Blues fan, home and away, Mark. You're living in Swansea now, right? You're working for the uni, and you've got some Chinese connections, right?
Yes, sir, yeah.
Good stuff. And above Mark is Cliff Horrocks, who's the chairman of the Blues Trust, who do a lot of work trying to get a bit of transparency within the club. But as Harry's pushed against time, let's say hi, and thanks for joining us, Harry. I mean, your time was... It was only, 5 months, but I well remember the day where you kept the club up in Bristol. Your memories of the club, I mean, they're in a terrible mess at the moment. If you thought it was bad when you left, it's got a lot worse. What have you made of the regime there?
Well, it's it's a disappointing situation, isn't it, Chris? I came in, initially just for 3 games, really. I got a phone call. That was a Saturday or bank holiday, whether it was I got a phone call in the evening just saying
another one off him.
Sorry, mate. I got a phone call just saying that Zola had just left and would I take over 3 games? I didn't know the people. I did it through Darren.
Darren Dean, yeah.
Dean. He rang me. I didn't know, Darren rang me out of the blue. So anyway, I had a meet with the owners and, or not the owner actually, with Dong, and said I would take it for 3 games. Came in, loved every minute of it. It was great. We stayed, which was a fantastic feat, I felt at the time. And then obviously came back for the following season. It was difficult. I mean, it wasn't easy. It was, I found that when things didn't, if you had a bad result, it was like the world was coming to an end, and it was. And a lot of the players I was trying to get, I really, I couldn't get them. And I was getting other players, other people seemed to want. So it was a very difficult period for me.
Yeah, I just want to shed some light on that, Harry. I mean, Blues less than 3 years ago since you left, and they're about to appoint what would be the fourth manager since you left. Yeah. Now, we're all thinking, I think, that there will be a manager who may not have full control of transfers. When you joined Blues, what was the situation? Were you told you have full control, or were you told straight away that Darren Dean, the agent who you were working with, was going to be bringing the players in, and you had to do the rest?
Oh no, I came in really to, I've never worked out. I wouldn't have took the job if I was working under them conditions where other people just pick the players. No, I've never done that in my life. I've been a manager and I managed a football club. So it was, no one ever said, oh, you can't have him because we want him. It was always found it difficult quite to get the ones over the line. I wanted Flynn from
Bristol City. Yeah.
I was going to take Stuart down in at the time on a free transfer. I think Middlesbrough were going to pay largest part of his wages. And he's still playing well now for Blackburn. So there was, 1 or 2 players I felt could have done well for us. I couldn't get in through the door, but that seems to be the norm now in football. But I just found it to be an amazing, a real good club with great supporters. Yeah. And I would dearly love to have done well there and stayed there for sure.
Yeah. So, okay. So the relationship with Dong, what was it like?
It was all right. I mean, Dong was, he was. I think, obviously it was his first experience in football. So he probably found it difficult. And, Julia was there. Julia was great. She'd been at the club a long time.
Julia Shelton.
Yeah. And then suddenly she went. So it was a difficult time, really. It was an easy period. But, I always felt after 3 or 4 games that, I was in trouble there, really. Once we lost, it was like, as I say, like the world was coming to an end, There was no sort of long-term, we'll turn it round, let's give it time. But because, have a look, I mean, they've had some good managers since then, and they've all come and gone. So you have to ask yourself why, really. It's strange.
Yeah, as I say, you will be the 4th. Did you get the impression that Dong wasn't really a football man?
he loved football, I think, but I mean, it was all new to him. You know, he'd never been involved before. But obviously, he's quite a clever businessman or whatever. But you know, listen, I don't want to be, Chris. I've got nothing to gain by digging people out now. You know, it's all history. But you know, I would say it's a great club with obviously great potential still. You know, and you'd love to see them back up where they, you know, pushing to try to get back into the Premier League, not fighting off relegation every year, because I think they've got some very good players there.
Yeah, I mean it's been a soap opera, hasn't it? And you did meet. Now, the big thing, a lot of questions from fans really, that is the kind of transparency thing. You did meet the owners. Can you tell us anything about that, or the guys who? You know, it's all a bit shady, and we don't really know who they are. I mean, what was? Can you explain what happened?
Well, I just met them with Dong, really, you know, and that was it. I still don't really, I'm not sure which one was the owner. Two gentlemen there who I met, and I'm not sure who was who really out of the two, who actually owned the club and which one didn't. You know, I couldn't put my life on it, who was the actual boss and who wasn't. But they were there with Dong.
So I'm guessing one of them was Mr. King, who we think is the sort of paymaster.
Might have been. Didn't speak English really, so it was very difficult. Didn't speak any English at all, I don't think. Not what he didn't. So I had no conversation with him really. I dealt, you know, Dong would speak to him, and but no, listen, I don't know. I mean, they've spent money. Even that year when I was there, we spent good money. Let's be honest. Yeah. It wasn't all through my choices, but we bought 3 players in from Brentford. You know, the boy Colin was an outstanding. I thought he was an outstanding fullback. I don't know how he's done since I left, but at the time he was a very good player. You know, the other boy, Yotta ended up going to Aston Villa. So I mean, obviously Dean Smith saw something in it. He must have fancied him to take him to Villa. You know, and the other boy is the centre half who's ended up there as captain. I think, you know, so they were decent players. They weren't bad. They were good players, and
I mean, the defence has been a disaster, Harry. I mean, conceding 3 goals average last 7 or 8 games. But you know, I mean, but it's just interesting. We were sort of wondering who's going to be the next coach, and we'll talk about that later. I know you've got to dash off, but I will say, I mean, Aitor Karanka's been mentioned, who has worked with Jose Mourinho, didn't he, at Real Madrid, and has been at Forest and Middlesbrough. Do you know much about Karanka?
No, he was a good player. I know he was a good player, and obviously he went to Middlesbrough and did a decent enough job. But you know, it's how much he's allowed to manage, and you know, it's always a problem. It seems this keeps being problems. Their managers keep coming and going. They're not all been idiots. So, you know, there've been some good managers there. As I say, none of them have really been able to make the success of it at the moment.
Yeah. Did you feel that, Harry? Did you feel as though you're a bit compromised?
You know, there's some clubs that you don't matter what seems to happen, they just can't. They can't get it right. You know, there's 3 or 4 clubs like that at the moment. You look at and you think, whoever goes in there, they change managers and somebody else has a go. But there's something underlying it all that just can't turn the club around, and that's a little bit the way it is. But it would be great if someone could go in there and be successful, because I mean, as I said, the support is amazing.
Yeah.
The fans, when the fans sing, you know, I think it's a great club. The place is jumping. And you'd love to see him be up there challenging him to get back into the Premier League. That would be great, you know. Yeah.
Did you feel that people were pulling in different directions or not? I mean, during that.
Yeah, I think there was too many people who had their own agendas. You know, there was people. I don't know who works alongside Dom now or who does, but there were. I did feel there was people who had been, you know, had their own agendas at the club. But you know, you get that at lots of clubs, but. It was difficult. I found it a difficult few months, you know. But listen, it was an experience that, you know, managing Birmingham. Yeah, it was, and keeping them up. There's something I'll never forget. Them 3 games the year before, winning at West Bristol City for me would always be, and beating Huddersfield at home with 10 men for 80 minutes was, you know, that. I don't think I've ever really celebrated winning a game like I did that at Bristol City. I mean. I thought I was David Pleat going back 30 or 40.
Remember you on the pitch, with the barrier collapse and all the rest.
I felt the fans were great, and I loved that kick. And really, I maybe looking back, I should have said, listen, I've done what I've had to do. But, I thought, well, yeah, I'd take it on, give it a go next year. And I did, even then, even though results weren't right, I enjoyed being at the club. I think that because of the support and the history of the club, it's been one of the top football clubs.
Yeah. We've got three guys just above you there, Harry, all champing at the bit. Want to ask a question, I'm sure. Tim, do you want to ask Harry something?
Well, not necessarily ask Harry anything, but a lot of the things he was saying sort of ring true with me working for the club, really in the ladies section. One of the things that's really stood out for me right from the very beginning, where I started to smell rats, as it were, was we was at the FA Cup final. The owners came into the Royal Box, sat on the front row. Me as being CEO, didn't even talk to me, didn't even ask me, didn't even question. I was waiting for budgets and whatnot, trying to understand. Bear in mind, we'd won the FA Cup, we'd runners up in the League Cup 3 times, Champions League semi-finalists. Yeah, we're actually top three ladies football team in the UK. And they just didn't really seem to, when anybody buys anything, any asset, you want to find out what it is that you're buying, and you want to understand, the DNA of the club, the values, the cultures, and all that. And there was just nothing. So, when you're saying that you don't know who the owners were and Dong's first job in football, but maybe he's a good businessman. But I think if he was a good businessman, I think you'd be asking those sort of questions, what it is that we're buying, and actually sort of fulfilling my questions. What was the strategy of the club? What was the direction? What were the objectives? There was just nothing there. So I do, and I'd have hoped actually on the men's side that perhaps be a little bit more concrete. But I think, all these managers that do keep coming in, and we've had some bloody good managers actually over the period of time. But I think it's the same. It seems to be the same story over and over and over again.
Yeah. Does that ring true, Harry? Does that sound about right?
I mean, I did meet the owner, but I honestly don't know which one of them owned the football club.
Well, nobody knows. I mean, that's the trouble. Nobody knows.
So that was the problem for me. I couldn't sit and say, yeah, I chatted to the owner. I'm not sure which one of the two gentlemen, but I think they were both owners or co-owners or whatever. So,
yeah.
And I'd be lying if I said to you I even knew their names. I mean, you said Mr. King. That's, other than that, I wouldn't. If that is the case, yeah, I remember that name before, but I didn't know their names.
Yeah, that's a name that's come out in the last couple of years. Mark Garratt, your question for Harry?
Yeah, Harry, obviously you've worked with a number of clubs, a number of owners, and a number of foreign owners. And with the COVID situation, can you see a time when we might return to British ownership? And secondly, who's the best owner you've ever worked for?
Well, I'd like to see more British owners, and I'd like to see more British coaches and managers getting the opportunity. I think we've seen this year, that there are lads around that, given the opportunity, can do the job. But, getting that chance to manage a top club is getting more and more difficult. I had some good owners in my first job at Bournemouth. I got on okay with, I got on well. People always felt I had problems with Daniel Levy. I never did, really. Daniel never interfered, never. He was fine with me, and he drives hard. He likes to be involved in the transfer. He does that, but never a problem for me working with Daniel. I had a good time working with him.
Yeah.
So I've been lucky, really. I say most of the owners were fine. I didn't really know, as I say, it was difficult with Birmingham. I had a chief executive, and he was really responsible. He worked for the owners, Dong, and he was new to the job. As I say, he'd come from out of football, and it was probably a new experience for him. But it's quite a daunting experience, I would think. I think at the moment he's under pressure there, it seems. And as you say, you've had people there who are not absolutely idiots. You had Zola. I followed Zola. Then you've had Steve Cottrell. You've had Gary Monk. There seemed to be problems when Gary Monk was there with people, and James Beattie had problems, didn't he?
Yeah. Still on gardening leave.
Yeah.
He was suddenly put out of gardening leave for some reason. I mean, how can you have Gary Monk's right-hand man on gardening leave? They're mates. it needs sorting out, because I say that, you know, and I'm not just saying that, it is a proper, you know, for me, it's a proper football club.
Can you shed light, Harry? Don't answer this if you don't want to. When you left, what can you just paint a picture of what happened? Who called you and what happened?
A phone call we got, you know, we had a bad start. You know, it was a difficult start to the season. We had new faces come in, and suddenly you're trying to put a team together, and it was difficult. You know, and we got beat. I was just on my way home. Got a phone call, just saying that you know, they were changing, getting rid of me. And I said, oh, okay.
Was that Ren Dong who called you?
Yeah, Dong rang me, and yeah, fine. What can you do?
Was it civil?
Yeah, oh yeah. I couldn't be bothered having a row or anything. I just thought, oh, sure, wish you good luck for the future. You know, Steve Cottrell came in within a couple of days of me going, and I think they played well. I think won their first game, and might beat Wolves even. Did they that night? I'm not sure. It was on TV. It was a good game with Wolves, I think. Or might have been a draw. Yeah, and then Stevie didn't last long, and then off you went from there.
Yeah. Cliff Horrocks, chair of the Blues Trust, who's a kind of, you sort of middleman, aren't you? I mean, you kind of link between the fans and the board, aren't you? The Blues Trust. We'll come on to that after Harry's gone. But what would you like to ask Harry?
Yeah, Harry, I don't know whether you're in touch with any of the people that have, you know, their names are in the frame for the job, and it's been going on a while now. Do people see it as a bit of a poison chalice, the manager's job at Birmingham at the moment?
No, I think it's a job that people would always want. You know, it's I say, you always think, yeah, I can go there and turn it round. And I say, when you look at the club over, you know, it's a club with, you know, we keep saying it, but it has got great potential. But sooner or later, it's got to stop being potential. It's got to get back to winning football matches and being a success again. But so I think I don't think there'd be no shortage of people queuing up for that job for sure.
Yeah. Well,
Harry, I was specifically meaning not about can you turn the club round, but actually the people I'm working for ain't going to give me a chance.
Well, I don't think people on the outside, I don't think other football people would look at it that way. You know, I think they'd think, you know, this is a real good opportunity for me to, you know, get me you know, everybody's looking for work. When people are out of work, you beggars can't be choosers to start with, but you're not exactly being a beggar when you go to Birmingham. You're taking a very good job. So it's a job that lots of good managers, I think, would want.
Yeah, well, mentioning Karanka, I mean, the word is, you know, he might say yes, but it depends on how much freedom he's got to do the job. We'll see. I mean, the next few days, because next season.
Yeah, I'm sure job for him. Listen, he's out of work, you know. So I'm sure if that opportunity comes up to manage Birmingham, he'd jump at it, like you know, an awful lot of people would.
Yeah, but is the thought process, you know, from bitter experience, Harry? I mean, is that the manager gets off, look at the club, and they think, do they immediately think of you know, the administration, the owners and stuff, and how much control am I going to have? Is that a normal thing?
Well, you do. But I think you'd go there if you're out of work, you'd jump at the opportunity to manage Birmingham. You would. You know, I don't think it's a club that you think, oh, it's, you know, it certainly would be a job that lots of good managers, I think, would give anything to have. So I'm sure they're going to get plenty of people queuing up to try and get that job.
Yeah, well, we're trying to scratching our heads a bit about who they might be. Robbie Fowler's in the frame as well, Harry. What do you think about Robbie?
Robbie, I love Robbie. I mean, you know, he was a great lad, and he's worked hard to get his coaching badges and everything else, and he's had a bit of experience in Australia. So, yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, he's a young man, a young manager with plenty of enthusiasm. He wouldn't be, why not give someone like that an opportunity?
Yeah, but you don't think it'd be too big a jump? Not too big a jump for him?
No, he knows what he's about, and he knows, you know, he's been there, played at the top level. I'm sure, you know, he knows the game. He'd have his ideas and probably desperate for a chance just to get a job like that. He'd probably walk to Birmingham, wouldn't he? If he got the opportunity, he'd give anything for that job, I'm sure.
Yeah. And the other guys there, any other names you can think of that we have? I mean, Chris Hughton's going to Bristol City, we think, don't we? I mean, he's going to...
Chris Hughton would have been fantastic, you know, I'm sure. Chris has been there, and, you know, his record is, you know, he's got a good record. He's been unlucky to lose job on a couple of occasions. I think it'd have been fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else think
and
of
Bristol's
names?
another good club. You know, it's a well-run club. Great opportunity if he gets that job. But there will be. Lee Bowyer's been mentioned. You know, Lee's done a good job this year at Charlton. Okay, they've gone down, but they were always in trouble. You know, there were ownership problems there, left, right, and centre. He played at Birmingham, didn't he? I mean, he could be someone. So there will be. I'm sure there'll be plenty of takers for a job like that.
Yeah. I'm just going to ask you, Harry, before you go, Jude Bellingham. Do you remember Jude when you were there? Because he would have been about, what, 14? No, less, 13, 14?
Yeah, he looks a fantastic player, doesn't he? I mean, what a talent.
Do you remember him?
Yeah, just about. Yeah, with the kids there. Yeah, you know, everyone said he was going to be a big player, you know.
Yeah, a lot of talk about them, wasn't there? From a very young age. Were you aware of that? I mean,
yeah. Everyone spoke about how good he was, and you know what a real talent he was, and he's proven that. I mean, he really does look a player. It's amazing, though. Suddenly you got kids like that wanting to go to Germany and play rather than playing at Man United or somewhere in England. Very strange, really, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but listen, if he gets game time, and amazingly, Harry, I mean, they've retired the shirt, number 22, Bellingham.
Well, I've heard that. You know, it's a bit strange for a 17-year-old. I must find that. I find that a bit bizarre, really.
It is.
Yeah, is that just does that say the naivety of the administration doing that? Do you think?
Yeah, I do find that a little bit bizarre. A 17-year-old kid who's played a few, played the season, as good as he is, and as good as we hope he's going to be. It is a strange one, isn't it? You know, it's normally what a truly great player who's had an incredible career, who maybe passed away or was retired and just was special. But it's not normally a young kid of 17, is it? That's for sure.
No, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, it is a strange one, that's for sure. I think everybody in football would look at that and think, what's all that about, you know?
Yeah, well, it's been all over Twitter and all over all the papers and stuff. But, you know, listen, Harry, I'll let you get on because I know you've got the family there. You've got Molly's been sorting you out with the audio and stuff there. And you're going for a midnight swim, they tell me. Is that right, on the beach?
Oh, you kidding me? Midnight? I'll be in bed at 10:30 at my age, 10:15. I'll watch a bit of the 10 o'clock news, off the bed, get your nut down, up, play golf early every morning. I've been teeing off every morning at 8 o'clock, so I love it. I get out on the golf course every day, Chris, you know.
So we've had a bit of a reshuffle after Harry's departure to his barbecue there. Just to say hi again, Tim Andrews, former CEO of the Blues Ladies team. Mark Garratt, who's based in Swansea now. A man of education who's got links to China. We'll come to that in a bit, Mark, and Blues fan home and away. And Cliff Horrocks is the chairman of the Blues Trust, who do a sound job. Now, I'm going to start with you, Tim, because caused a bit of a stir during the week. I mean, you're kind of a strange man after the Derby game. I'm going to read out your tweet here. I hope you don't mind. I can't watch my club get ruined any longer by these people. Dong Ren, please do the honourable thing and step aside. Sorry, but I can't keep silent any longer. A fish rots from the head down. Our club is rotten, which is fairly unequivocal. Are you calmed down yet?
I've wanted to say it for quite a long time, if I'm being honest with you. You know, and I just think anybody needs a second chance or a third chance, and plenty of time to resolve it. But as you know, I worked in the club for quite a long time, and I've been attached to the club since 1991. So, you know, I'm talking. You know, I've not just been around for 5 minutes here.
That's through sponsorship of the club, right?
Yeah, through sponsorship. Yeah, and and Hollywood Signs previous to that. Yeah, so since 1991, and so I've been attached to the club for a long time, and I've seen many people come and go. And you know, and when I took over Blues Ladies, I'd not got no previous football CEO management experience. But people think football is a special product. It's very different to running a company. Actually, it's not, other than the fact that football isn't about making money, but it's about having a strategy, having a dream, sharing the dream with the fans, informing them, taking them on that journey, as stakeholders of any business, really. And I'm still in touch with a lot of people who work for the club, a lot of the players, the girls and the men, and all the girls that have passed, have sort of moved on as well into new clubs. But it's the same saying all the time, that if we had some decent owners, and that's not to say that the owners that we've got are not the right owners, because I think it's fair to say they've put their mouth where the money is, or put the money where their mouth is.
The money's been coming in, that's the one thing the money has so far.
Yes,
it's just the way the club has been run is wrong, isn't it? It just feels wrong.
Yeah, it's not. It's at that point when I said earlier about sharing the vision, sharing the strategy, and actually also the culture within the club as well. When I was there, it was just very much, it was running silos, very much different departments were just looking after themselves, really. And let's be honest, since Karen left, there hasn't been really a strong leader in that football team. And
on the playing side.
No, on the business side, actually running the club. There's not been a leader. And any company, forget about football, any company needs a leader that's strong, fair. All the values and whatnot ingrained come from the top. And when you've got a CEO that's just not happening. He may be good at running a business in China, but the values and their principles, and their strategies and their tactics are very different to over here. And I'm not saying that they are wrong in their own rights, but they just don't seem to be working.
He relies on people, advisors, doesn't he? We've seen that. Mark Garratt, I mean, Darren Dean, you had Harry there. I mean, I know Harry had to work with him, and he mentioned he wanted to sign Aidan Flint. Darren Dean wanted to bring in Harley Dean. So you end up where Dong doesn't have the connections, where he's bringing, and as I mentioned to Harry, people pulling in different directions. That's the problem, isn't it? It's that kind of know-how. Would you say?
Yeah, and also empowering people to make the right decisions. I work in the world of higher education. You've got to you've got to employ the right people, empower the right people to make the right decisions. And it feels to me that, and Barry did say that, that there's people that have been brought into the club that don't understand football. They may be able to run businesses in China. And I think that the point Tim's making about values, it's difficult, isn't it, with football? Because we're passionate about it because we're fans. We're not customers. We're fans. We feel we own it. Yeah. It's not quite, how to phrase it, actually, but we feel we own it. And so anyone that owns a football club has to both have the right people in and empower the fans to feel part of it. Yeah. And I mean, ironically, so the last few years, I personally, as a fan, with my fan hat on, I felt energised with Harry's short reign. I felt energised with Gary Monk. I think we all did. And they got it. As managers, they got the power of bringing fans along, and the amount of people that went to away games in those regions. But when it comes to running it, I mean, the question I asked him about foreign ownership, I mean, we're now in a situation where with COVID, the world's going to change. And so, there was rumours that, Putin had told all the Russians to get out of Premiership clubs. Are the Chinese now going to say to all the Chinese owners of football clubs in England to get out? Who knows?
Well, the Premier League has stopped being shown in China after the little spat we've had the last few days. And you do wonder, it's not beyond the realms that the Chinese government might say, that Blues are not the only Chinese-owned club, that there might be some. How ironic that would be, wouldn't it? If they had to pull out for those reasons.
But it would. I mean, but Cliff's better equipped to talk about this now, but. We all as fans say what the problem is. We know what the problem is, but we haven't necessarily got a solution. So is the solution other foreign ownership? Is it doing a Swansea? Swansea went through their journey, obviously, where I'm living now.
Well, they were fan-owned club, weren't they, for a while, under Hayden Jenkins, was it? You do wonder, and that's where you can come in, Cliff, and point us in that direction, because, I think maybe down the line, Blues might follow that model if the bottom all falls out, and the club's not going to disappear. It would never happen to a great club like Blues, he said. But Portsmouth, Swansea, we've seen it, and is that what you're there for? What is the Blues Trust doing?
I mean, ultimately, the Blues Trust is there so that if the club went out of business and there's administrators appointed, it's the last point of call to try and pull the club back together. We're not part of the club. We're a separate organisation. We're a trust, and there's a lot. Every club just about has got a trust, and the remit that we have over sort of other supporters groups and stuff, if you like. We're not a better supporters group, but we're just a legally constituted body that can own assets. And actually within the EFL rules, if a club goes into administration, the administrator must talk to the trust. It doesn't say that they have to accept a bid, but they must talk.
Do you have any influence at all? I mean, what is your you're the chairman, right?
Yeah.
So you do the speaking. Have you spoken to Dong?
Once.
What happened?
Well, it was not that long after Gary Monk, and we had a fairly frank discussion about why he sacked Gary Monk, and it wasn't his fault, basically. That's what he told me.
Okay, a frank discussion under what circumstances? Did you confront him, or did he invite you along to say what?
No. We've been trying for 3 or 4 years now to try and get some proper dialogue in place between, the supporters group, especially us, but other supporters groups, and the club. And we thought we'd made some great progress because, whilst we sworn secrecy, it did get out there that he did have a meeting with some supporters, and we said we would keep it confidential, and I will really, because if I said I'll keep something confidential, I will. But the expectation is that we would have more meetings and stuff after that, and get a good dialogue going. Unfortunately, with COVID and stuff, that really hasn't happened. So we haven't got a dialogue going. So I'm not in a position to say, actually, he hasn't followed through on the promise to me, to take it forward. But what I would say is we've been trying for 3 years, and it's quite easy to sit down and talk.
Yeah. Can you? I mean, have you been, for want of a better word, moaning to him, saying, "Look, what's going on at this club"?
Yeah. I mean,
because you've got his ear. So can you do that?
No,
nobody else has.
I haven't got his ear at all. No, not at all. I wish I had. That's what we're trying to work on. And we've been in a position over the last 3 years at the trust of, having criticisms of the club that sometimes we really want to get out there and say, this is not right. But we have been holding back a bit because, on the other hand, we've been trying to build a relationship where we would maybe, be able to get some transparency out to the fans. We haven't been successful in that.
No.
And, when the Gary Monk thing happened, we said publicly that Mr. Ren really wasn't the guy for the job and stuff like that. And he obviously didn't want to speak to us after that.
Yeah.
And we've just done the open letter to the owners saying, we need to strengthen in the area of chief exec, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Now listen, it's not a secret. I mean, the vast, I'd say, the majority of the Blue support is up in arms about what's been going on, and Dong is perceived to be public enemy number one. I'm sure he's doing his best, and he's and the money's been coming in, but it's that ability and knowledge. Now here's a quandary, okay, and I'll put this to all of you. Protest. We saw you all saw, I'm sure, on Twitter the other day. I mean, he had someone threw a smoke bomb through his window outside the game. And, and there was effing and blinding, all the rest of it. And, the police supposedly had a look. I'm not sure there was any complaint made, so it's not going anywhere. But, okay, this is the voice of the fan, okay. Support the club and hope it gets better, or protest. There's got to be some kind of recourse. There's got to be some recourse, which is, so...
That isn't mutually exclusive, is it? I mean, when you talk about protests, that you've got to decide where you go with the protest. Never condone anything that's violent. Obviously, as the trust, we would never do that. But you can try and do mass protests. Blues fans aren't good at mass protest. Everybody's got a different opinion of what's going on and stuff like that. When other trusts have galvanised supporters to get rid of owners, if that's what the protest was about, it's taken 3 or 4 years of people not buying season tickets and not going to games. It's a right long road of not very good stuff. I mean, and that's why it would be better if we could have a conversation.
But it's getting the ear, isn't it? That's the trouble.
But getting Dong's ear is the wrong ear now, isn't it?
Is it?
We've got to that point where I think everybody's come to the conclusion that he's one of the issues at the club and should be swapped out. If we're talking really bluntly about it.
Okay.
So the people that can swap him out are the actual owners. So that's Mr. King and Mr. Sun.
Zhao, I mean, it's getting the message back, isn't it? I know Daniel Ivory, who was on one of these with me a couple of weeks ago.
What I would say to supporters is when we've got stuff in the South China Post, as published there, and when emails get to the BSH board in Hong Kong, then they do stand up and worry a little bit. If it doesn't get past this country, then I don't think people at the club care, because to be fair, the owners believe what their representative here is saying, and that it's everybody else's fault and stuff.
Yeah, that's
but I think there's a whole cultural issue here that's really hard to break, because the people from Hong Kong are used to working in this hierarchical structure where actually you don't have to have a reason for why you do things. Yet the culture over here, and especially in football, is we want a lot of transparency. The fans want to know what's going on, and explain yourself. And if there's a mistake, get yourself on the television and explain it. And it's a completely different culture. Yeah. And I think it's really hard for them to come to terms with the fact that we expect people to be accountable rather than just accept if they're in charge.
Yeah. Tim, boycott. Fans, recourse to a fan. What do you do? How do you get the message across? You don't turn up. You keep money away from the club. No. Now that would really split a lot of people, because the aim is to support your club, right? Now, how do you protest, you boycott, and that might mean relegation, even if it were to remove the incumbents. One step backwards and 2 forwards. Is that realistic? You're nodding, Mark.
So first of all, the what happened the other night with throwing the smoke bombs, that can't be condoned. I was actually quite embarrassed to be a Birmingham City fan.
It was only a few people anyway, wasn't it? But
it was only a few people.
The anger was apparent. Yeah, there
was some support on Twitter as well for it. But we can't get into that, because that's
football fans,
silly. Obviously, that has been pent up anger through quite a few years now of our fans just not being listened to. If the Blues Trust can't get the ear of Dong, then who can? It should be a trusted supporters club. Any CEO of any football club should be listening to all the football supporters clubs. When I was at the Ladies, we had evenings. We discussed many different ideas. Talked to them all the time about signings, lack of signings, or even.
So what would you do, Tim? What would you do? What would you recommend?
Straight away, I think we've already accepted that these owners have invested a lot of money into our football club, and actually, I think as an ownership, they must be listening to and watching what's going on more than we think, because nobody in their right mind would invest that sort of money without knowing what's really going on. So they must care about the club to a degree. They must do. And they must care about their money that they're putting into the club to think that they'll get it back at some point in the future. The disconnection for me is the person running the club who's just not keeping the fans informed of what's going on. Now, there's obviously confidentialities in any business, and certain things you just don't tell your staff, you don't tell your clients, you don't tell your suppliers and whatnot, all the stakeholders connected to a business. But in our football club, the fans are they're not being spoken to at all. So we just don't know what's happening. Now, you know, if there's a good reason why, and I think most people support the sale of Jude actually, and I think that's great business for the club. But actually, it could have been received in quite a really bad way as well. But, you know, even just the point where you're explaining where the money is going to be reinvested into the club, whether it be into infrastructure, or putting hot water into the changing rooms at Wastills, for instance, you know, just really basic stuff that you'd expect to be in place.
Is it cold?
No, actually, no. I'm actually, I mean, when we've been in there, it's been cold, but I'm sure there is hot water. But the infrastructure of the club is not where it needs to be. You know, you've got to match your infrastructure to the dreams and the aspirations of the club. And actually, that money could be used very wisely. And actually, if all the fans are told that's where the money is going to be invested, it just brings everybody on board with the decision that's been made. I'm not saying they're not. I mean, it's probably a bad example in fairness, but you see where I'm going with the decisions that are made within the club, and it just needs to be a lot more transparent than it is. Yeah. Now, I think, you know, we accept Dong is inexperienced, but I've sat back and watched it and waiting to think, do you know what, he's going to get better, he's going to learn, he's going to, you know, and as I did with the ladies side. But there just seems to be no improvement really, and no engagement with the fans. And I'll also say very little engagement with the staff in the club as well, which is even.
Well, the Pep Clotet departure was, you know, I mean, a mild mannered man. You know, it appears to have been some kind of fallout there, and you know, he's gone. I mean, and you know, Harry mentioned, you know, Julia Shelton and all the stuff. They all left, didn't they? And there's a new broom gone through the club. But, you know, listen, they put the money in, so. But yeah, I mean, it's very frustrating with points deductions and the way the club has been run. Mark, would you sort of accept a step backwards to step forwards, whatever form that may take? So, fans staying away, or just saying, look, you know, and because what is your voice? I mean, nobody's really come forward with a way forward apart from, you know, I mean, what is the recourse for a fan other than protest? Which Blues fans don't really do, because they kind of get on with it, don't they? Or just staying away.
Look, this club's been around since 1875, and we have a duty as fans, I suppose, to support the sustainability of the club going forward. And you've said, even if we went to administration, Birmingham City would still reincarnate itself. So the point that Cliff made about hierarchy is absolutely right. Culturally in China, hierarchies has to be respected. So protesting per se isn't necessarily going to make them change their mind. My understanding through the work Daniel Ivory's been doing is that, you know, they've only got the club because they want the Hong Kong Stock Exchange.
Yeah, the listing is everything. Yes.
So it's got bugger all. I mean, you know, Tim made a good point, but it's absolutely got bugger all to do with Birmingham City. So if you think about it, I mean, in some respects, I wasn't too concerned actually on Wednesday, because actually getting relegated might have been a way of
I agree with that,
accentuating it.
I'm the same. Cliff, did you feel that way as well? I mean, to me, it's just another defeat. It's just so used to it now, and the club is just going up.
These are the wrong people for our football club, culturally, and they're not interested. And if we took a long-term view, and of course we don't as football fans, but if we did, and you know, I've mentioned Swansea before, if we took that approach, but then the question is, what would Plan B actually be? And I don't know, because I don't know how you'd even go about it.
Yeah.
But if we took that view, we will follow Birmingham City in National League One. We will always follow Birmingham City.
Yeah, the kind of strength, you know. I mean, it does bring people close. I mean, you see it with clubs like Portsmouth, you know, have been, you know, dropped right down. But they come back, you know, and Bury now, you know, they're coming back in the 10th division, the 10th level. AFC Bury are going to come back, and listen, they'll come back in the Football League. So yeah,
I think one of the issues, or one of the big issues with Blues is because people say, well, actually, you know, there isn't any new owners queuing up out there for the Blues and things like that. I don't think that's true. I think there are a number of people that would be interested in buying the club. The issue is because of the complex nature, and this is Daniel Ivory's stuff, and if you want to know the ins and outs, look at Daniel Ivory's stuff. But the issue being that we've got a parent company that's listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, which has got a value in itself. But anybody buying the Blues doesn't really want the value of that, and they don't want to buy a company that's got a listing in Hong Kong, especially if it's a local connection that wants to buy the Blues. So the value that they would want is just nothing anywhere near the value of the club. It's much over it, and they would need to sell, the Hong Kong listed company. I think there's some. My hope is that there's a deal to be done whereby you don't buy the Hong Kong listed company and you can buy the Blues, but that would need some quite complex dealings to go on to allow the Hong Kong listed company to be in existence, because the Blues are their business basically, and if they didn't own the Blues, they would have the listing taken away. So it all gets a bit complex. But as they've got more properties in Cambodia, and the assets are growing in Cambodia of that company, I'm hoping that it can come to a point that if the owners wanted to sell, and the thing is, we don't know whether they're in it for the long term or actually they would love to sell and just get the money back. I don't know. Any buying of the club is really complex, and the value that would be expected for it with the amount of money that's been put in is well above the value of the club.
Can I ask you another question, Cliff? Have you been in touch with the Football League about the transparency thing and your contact with the ownership? Because the Football League have said really that their fit and proper test does fall short in many areas. Have you been to speak to them?
I haven't spoken directly with the Football League. We're part of the Football Supporters Association, which is an umbrella of a lot of the trusts, and our umbrella organisation speaks to the Football League and have spoken about it with the Football League for us, and the National Football Supporters Association have taken it up with the EFL for us. Within the EFL rules, there's a thing called structured dialogue or fan engagement that, they are actually breaking the rules by not having a fan engagement about these sort of things. They have the fans forum where you talk about how much bog rolls in the thing and no chips in the Tilton, but and obviously they won't talk about any financial issues or planning issues or stuff like that. And that within the EFL rules, they are breaking the rules. But I don't shout about that too much because you might have a points deduction for that.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, look, we've only got 10 minutes or so. Let's talk about the way forward then. Managers, Harry mentioned a few names there. What do we think, Tim? What do you think could happen any time, really? But the new season is September the 12th, by the way. If you haven't heard, September the 12th.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
so it's only a month and a half away.
How many managers do we need to go through? If you're not changing the problem's still going to exist, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I think Alex Ferguson, would probably struggle. So I don't know. I do like the idea of a younger manager coming in, but is he going to be allowed to, to do what the players would expect a manager to be doing, and would you get the respect?
If the results, let's be honest now, if the results don't improve, it's just going to get nastier and nastier. We mentioned that little episode the other day. It's going to get worse, I think. If we all know with football, if you win, everyone's happy, aren't they? I mean, when you've got everyone knows the background at Blues, when the results have been so dire and the Clotet departure and the just total lack of interest from anybody after that, it's really driven people over the edge, including yourself, Tim, with that. Mark, what do you think? I mean, manager-wise, who's going to make people happier?
I travelled all the way back from from Lagos via Dubai to the Charlton away game, and I watched the reaction of the Blues fans towards Bowyer, which I thought was it's unique, that I think, and he found it unique. So I'd give him a go because, as I said earlier on, when you've got someone that galvanises the fans and in a sense, he's kind of from that kind of the working class culture in which we've come from. I'd give him a go. I mean, Cranky, I don't quite believe. It would have been fantastic to have Houghton, but if you're saying he's going to...
That's the whisper is Bristol City. Yeah,
he would have been great. But I'd give Bowyer a go. He's got relegated now, so that's good.
It certainly can, wouldn't you think?
And he will, because we'll all trot out. We'll all sell it. We'll sell out all the away games because we've got someone we believe is one of us.
Yeah, Cliff, what do you think? Who would you like?
Yeah, sorry, I mean, Chris Houghton would be my choice if I was given a choice. I think the stuff Tim is saying is right though. If my dream here would be experienced chief exec, whether that's working for or with or instead of Dong, that who appoints a manager who he's had a relationship with. That's my dream, my dream scenario. If next week that could happen, that would be fantastic. I think there is some pressure on the owners to make some changes. I mean, Mr. Ren has lost his job once before, and then they reinstated him 2 weeks later.
When was this?
This was about a year and a half ago. You have to read Daniel Ivory's stuff.
Was that when Zhao Wenjing came over?
Yeah. But his powers were reduced.
Then was running it for 2 weeks, and it's such a disaster that they had to bring Dong back. So, that's interesting. So I think it's not beyond the pale for that to happen. But to be fair, their dealings from a Chinese point of view with English football people have been with agents. Well, to be fair,
that needs to stop.
They've had the fingers burnt with agents, and so they're very worried about dealing with football people.
Yeah. Okay, Tim, I'm just going to end it with you because you quite like that job, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'd love the job.
You would like that job. I remember you saying to me a long time ago.
Am I experienced?
Did you do it? Okay, you're in the interview with Mr. King now. Sell yourself.
Well, the issue, first and foremost, the issue is the language barrier. So rewind back to when Harry was saying that when he went over, they both couldn't talk English. So that's problem number one for a start. Yes, I would love the job. Am I experienced enough for it? Well, I know how to put a company right. I certainly was successful running the ladies team. That everything is exactly the same in the ladies game as it is in the men in terms of rules. We didn't have no points deductions or anything like that in the ladies team. And we took the club right up to the, pretty much as high as you could get, really, certainly with the limited budget we got. I think when I worked at the club, it's only really quite easy fixes. And I really do believe that, because us Blues fans, we are very passionate. They just need to be involved and talked to and listened to. And, I don't think anybody who's going to come in is going to make every right decision. But you know what? When they make the wrong decision, just explain the reasons behind it and put it right, And I just think Blues fans, we're not a Chelsea. We're not, a real glam football club. We're a football club that expects people to work hard and honesty, and trust. And these are the sort of the values that I would certainly bring to the job. That's for sure. And I just think that's what every Blues fan needs and deserves as well.
Get your letter off to Mr. King and Mr. Suen and Zhao Wen King and all the rest of them.
There's a guy already at the club, Ian Dutton, who would be perfect for it. Perhaps me and him would be
commercial
would
department.
be a great.
Nice lad, big Blues fan as well, Ian. Yeah. So we're running out of time, chaps. So overall feeling as the season's over, we're just waiting now, aren't we, for the new manager? This just got to say, just the mood is really down. It's down. I mean, a lot of people are really angry. You were really angry the other night, Tim. But it does feel a bit sort of down. And sometimes that is a Blues thing. Blues fandom is sort of, it can be like that, and it can be, as we saw with the stuff outside, it can go right over the top.
We're not fickle though, are we? Yeah, we're not fickle. It's been a long time now. It's not just a bad result. It's 3-4 years of well, a lot longer than that, actually, when you
10 years.
consider the previous ownership. But it just keeps to be the same, and and it's good what you're doing, but we are lacking other media outlets in the city for sort of like digging away and trying to find out.
But it's difficult, I mean, I'd say from the media side, the local media, you kind of not work for the club, but you bite the hand that feeds. Sometimes it's a bit difficult. So it's always that way with local media, unfortunately. But people like Dan Ivory have been doing a great job with the Hong Kong stuff, and digging does very well.
Again, somebody else that needs you need to get people like that on their side.
Yeah,
not working against them. And your media outlets are really important. And keep them on your side. Talk to them.
All right, thanks, Tim. Thanks, Mark and Cliff. Keep up the good work. Get knocking on Dong's door, because you should have his ear.
Totally.
It would be lovely.
And we'll see what happens. But September the 12th is the new season. So who will be in charge of Blues then, and what state the club will be in? We have no idea right now. It's a real soap opera. But thanks, guys, and as ever, keep right on.
Cheers.
On, guys.
Keep right on, guys.